topic is about teaching science and the role of experts. What should be the role of experts in democratic societies, and how science should be taught to the public, to the society, for us to be able to ensure the strong and solid link between civil society and science. Today's discussion will be built upon two recent pieces published by Heather Douglas. Our key speaker today will be Mariam Atalyan from the Agrarian University of Armenia. Welcome everyone here. As mentioned by Mr. Bala, today we will discuss two articles, and we can introduce here by points how the author starts the article. First of all, the author starts with very important perception as to what the society should be taught about the science. The author introduces the key ways which ensure the dialogue between the citizen and the science, including the grounds for contestation of scientific propositions. It also attaches importance to the values, specifically the role of social and moral values, where and how these moral values and social values play a crucial role in scientific processes. The key concept of the second article is the role of scientists, how it is determined in the democratic society. And this is being built on in the context of a dialogue between Mariam and Jobu. It is also about what is science, because one of the contemporary issues is whether we can trust the science and the scientists, despite the fact that the scientists are among the represent the professions which need to be trusted more. But however, according to the citizens, some issues in the science are not clarified and explained to the extent they would like it to be. And the author prioritizes what is science. We accept that science is not simply a stock of facts. It is a well-justified epistemological and endless process of fact and evidence collection, processing, contestation, but this contestation is also to some extent dangerous. What is the legitimate boundary and ground where the citizen has the power to contest scientific propositions? Science creates propositions and proves them through processes, and this process has critical and inductive nature. It is not always that we do these theories include all existing evidence. Later, when these evidences are cross-checked, we see that there are more theories than proofs. In the best case scenario, the proof provides for limited inductive support to the theory. It is the work of the scientists to continually improve and reformulate the theories and their connection and their linkage with the proof. In this regard, the role of scientific education is crucial. What to teach, what to instruct, what will be more important for the regular citizens. There is this general perception that citizens do not know the facts that science already has available and has responses to, like with regard to the age of the earth, about DNA, and this kind of perception is very important for the citizen. But the author mentions that there is no need to be based on the facts, because facts are ever changing, and as already mentioned, science is an evolving process, and change of facts becomes quite logical in this context. The second condition as to why not to rely on facts is that new emergence of new facts and new evidence do not come up to the expectation of the society and often drive the society to despair. Among the scientists, definitely this type of competitive nature should take place. This kind of disagreement should be present. However, with regard to the second requirement, it gives the author the discretion to command that one need not be based on the facts. The next one, sometimes it's the information are outdated, and the information and the education we get at school doesn't equip us with tools to move on. The pedagogues, teachers mostly claim that the national curricula and reforming national curricula is challenging, but these type of reforms are necessary, starting from preschool, in our case till K2, end of K2, and to teach a scientific program or curricula which will not focus on learning or of the scientific facts, but will equip with proper perception of what science is, of what science is doing, and the students need to be engaged in scientific projects. Students will have to be able to do data collection, to provide alternative explanations to phenomena, to see the competitive nature of science, and based on the potential historical contradictions and examples, therefore, to indicate how these discussions might be useful. In this sense, it is very crucial to consider these two models, why citizens mostly do not agree with science. The research has suggested that citizens are not informed about the outcomes of various tests. These multiple choice tests have shown that the model of deficit is one precondition whereby the citizen and science interconnection is missing. This is because the citizens lack awareness. Another problem is also interested or the sense of ownership. Ownership also depends on the worldview. When I try to see what my peers or depending on my values, what potential analysis and research are available, giving me the opportunity to find the answers I want to see myself. So these are the internal insights which play a crucial role in differentiating fact-based and factual evidence. The problem between the dialogue between the society and science about how it may work has two groups of scientists. One group of scientists believes if you are well aware of the facts and you have a proper understanding of the science, then you would more agree with the scientists. But Heather Douglas is in disagreement with this perspective. The author believes that this is the mass that should propose challenging and complicated questions to the scientists, and the scientists should be in the position to answer. So having informed citizens, the curriculum need to be revisited, and the citizens need to be engaged into the science. How? One of the ways is the civic science, whereby based on experiments, it becomes possible to mobilize the citizens and engage them in science. In this particular case, citizens try to help the scientists. They generally collect some data. They try to address some problems, rigorous problems. And the article provides the example of folded game. By the way, on the internet, you may find similar series of games where non-specialists have come together and there is a problem being proposed. Everyone is is suggesting their own response, and then the scientists discuss these viewpoints, and based on these responses, the scientists, as a result of various discussions, select the best choices. In this case, citizens are engaged in the science. Research suggests that the scientists are proposing questions, and it is not as if the citizens are free to ask questions themselves. In very few cases, the scientists allow the citizens to ask the questions. These two models about deficit and about the thinking is to bring the scientists and the citizens into an agreement. The author in this article reflects on four grounds for contestation of scientific proposition, emphasizing this last point. She mentions that where the scientists can contest these assertions. Assertion is not empiric, but is based on belief. We know that belief-based thinking is not open to discussion. For example, proofs, scientific assertions are open to discussion, up to criticism, but assertions or statements made based on beliefs are closed, do not give such an opportunity. Assertions do not have sufficient and essential empiric grounds. In this regard, proofs are important. Sometimes citizens do have more empirical information and they are sure that they are right and they require more from the scientists. But if we follow closely to the second ground, it turns out that in this particular case, the scientists again are in front, are ahead of the scientists. Scientists were not fair. There is scientific hoax. The main opinion here is that the scientific community needs to address and reflect on criticism and alternative research, even if it is time-consuming for them. They need to find ways whereby they would mobilize the citizens into the science. The next one is when the statement is based on the wrong values. And on one case, it is not kind of relevant. In the second case, it is not sufficiently proven. In this context, attaching importance to the role of social and moral values. There are two specific types are being identified by the author. When the decision is made about what to research, and the second time, whether factual evidence, pieces of evidence are sufficient to accept or to agree with the suggestion. In this particular case, inductive method is prioritized. With regard to the first question about as to what to research, the example of vaccine is being elaborated in the article. Members of the society might contest the scientific assertions because they find that scientists do not respond to the questions that we need to get answers to, or mostly they are formulating the wrong research questions. And the social norms and values, of course, build or construct the scientists' interest towards particular topics, but mostly there is a gap between what is interesting for the citizens and what is interesting for the scientists. With regard to the example with the vaccine is the case when there was a correlation announced between vaccination and autism, but it definitely lacked proof. With regard to research, the next problem is that often the parents are told that they know their children better, they know what their children need. This is connected with the scientific culture, but on the other hand, they compel the parents to follow this mandatory timeline or schedule of vaccination. And the conflict pops up here as to how the citizens should be mobilized, should be engaged, and to decide what is the right solution. In the second case, when we speak about whether the proofs are sufficient or not, or adequate or not, the role of inductive risk should be pinpointed. Inductive risk is about whether the proof is sufficient for me to accept that assertion as true. This depends on whether it's false, whether it's false positive or false negative, and which one is riskier. They in the article there is an example about bees and about the pesticide used on the bees. The dosage, actually, if I accept that the dosage is big and it is harmful for the bees population, then naturally I will follow all the research activities and responses by the scientists that would provide me with the answer I want to hear. Because for me, from the value system, the social and moral values is important. Their presence is important for me. Now, the problem arises as to whom to believe when the experts argue. As a sum up, we can accept that citizens would prefer to trust those scientists that shared their social and moral values, because in this particular case, the expert would respond to the inductive risk. But since science is not a setting or environment to be flexible, to accommodate everyone, it is not from the, it is from the value perspective. We need to really take into account various scientific assertions. There should be some boundary as to what questions should be proposed and legitimately what can be criticized. The second article about the role of experts in democracy, it is mostly a historical overview about who experts ask whether science should be overseen by the society or whether it should be independent from the society. It talked also about public society over the experts and the role of experts in the Cold War. So this Whitman and Dew's debate has been taken into consideration as a context. Whitman believes that the scientists should be independent from the political sector and from the society, and in its publication, Whitman presented the technical expertise that it is important that is important to govern complex democratic systems. And it mentioned also that the society is an emotional system. It is manageable by the politicians and it is being guided by the media, and democratic societies need to be built in separately it should be seen as a separate and independent expertise. In contrast to Whitman, Dewey, back in 1927, in its publication, showed that it agrees with the perspective of Whitman about the society, but it was against the understanding that the expert should be dependent from society. He believed that the expert should be accountable to the society. This correlation was very important to properly form the public interest. And the experts should focus their opinion on proof, fact-driven knowledge. The experts are not neutral researchers, according to Dew. However, Lippmann's vision was disseminated after the World War II. The Second World War changed the this discourse about scientific experts and democratic governance. And then Merton here is the linear model, which is known as one-way pipeline. It speaks about the public resources and the investment thereof, which show how the experts are guiding these resources. The key knowledge that is being attained is shared with engineers or applied scientists, and then they produce public goods, which then justify the government expenditure. So it turns out that science should be a value-free, politically neutral activity, isolated from broader societal issues. This linear model is also used in scientific consultancy, scientific knowledge, and with regard to issues of engaging society in science. It was assumed that science should match these criteria. The other section of the article dwells on the attempt to create an ultrasound means of transportation. At some extent, it was almost succeeding, but it failed back in 1960s because there was no concept of about the homogeneity. So the question was whether is it not dangerous for the society, and the concept of ultrasound noise and technical. From the economic perspective, it was not feasible to implement. And in the end of 1960s, during Nixon's period in office, the financing for this ultrasound vehicle, there was a huge debate about this and argument, and the consulting or advisory committee was liquidated, and the US Senate was compelled to adopt the law about federal Senate. Then Nixon managed to be re-elected and contributed to the implementation of this project. But Richard Garvin, who was leading this committee, produced two reports, two research actually projects. No, he knew two projects, two research projects, claiming that the implementation of this particular project will be dangerous. So Gardner received some criticism about why does he criticize, but his example shows that the discussions should be open to the society unless it is about the national security. So this example suggests that the role of social roles in this era of technology should be weighed in terms of feasibility, whether it is acceptable from the moral perspective or not. And as a sum up of these two articles, we should emphasize the fact that the nature of science is very important, more important rather than mere acknowledgement of scientific facts. The scientists should grasp the idea of the fact-based and proof-based nature of the science. Neither the model of deficit or the model of interested or motivation do not explain the disagreement between the society and the science. These assertions are often, there are some assertions, some scientists were unfair, some facts are not properly used to, or some scientific assertions are not well grounded. and science advisors need to serve and be reporting to the society. Thank you. Maybe I will try to provide or to extend the topic through questions and